Trump accused of feigning transparency in Epstein files scandal, Washington, D.C. In a recent interview, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a member of the U.S. House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, sharply criticized former President Donald Trump over his stance on the release of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. According to Crockett, Trump's directive for Attorney General Pam Bondi to request the release of grand jury testimony was not an act of transparency, but rather a calculated political move. He knows full well that grand jury materials are nearly impossible to legally disclose, but he pretends to push for their release so he can later blame the courts when the request is denied, Crockett said. The Texas Congresswoman emphasized that if Trump genuinely cared about transparency, he could have released other documents not protected by grand jury secrecy. Yet, he chose not to. This is just his way of dodging responsibility, misleading the public, and continuing to paint himself as a victim to his MAGA base, she added. Crockett's remarks raise serious questions about Trump's true role in delaying the full release of the Epstein files, a case involving a global underage sex trafficking network that has shocked international audiences. GOP accused of dodging Epstein vote due to pressure from Trump, Washington, D.C. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a member of the House Oversight Committee, has accused Republican lawmakers of deliberately avoiding a vote that would compel the release of grand jury documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. According to Crockett, this move reflects deep internal fears within the Republican Party about the potential political fallout if sensitive information were to be made public. We've seen some Republican members absent themselves from recent votes. That's a clear sign they're backing away. They don't want to risk damaging the image of their so-called supreme leader, Crockett said, referring to former President Donald Trump. The Texas Congresswoman emphasized that many Republicans understand the documents could reveal damaging details not only about Trump, but also about the broader MAGA movement and the GOP as a whole. They're choosing loyalty to him over honesty with voters and allegiance to the Constitution, she added. Crockett also warned that this effort to shield key information could erode public trust in the justice system, especially in a case as explosive and internationally scrutinized as Epstein's, involving allegations of human trafficking and years of sexual abuse of minors. Exas, accused of continued voter suppression through redistricting to cement. GOP power. Austin, Texas. Public outcry is mounting after Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced a special legislative session aimed at redrawing the state's congressional maps, years ahead of the usual schedule. The move is widely seen as an attempt to create 5 new, safe red districts for the Republican Party, thereby reinforcing its majority in the U.S. House of Representatives in upcoming elections. U.S. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a former Texas state legislator, warned that this is a calculated strategy to dilute the voting power of communities of color and push forward a racially biased political agenda. Texas is one of the most diverse states in the nation, yet the ruling party is trying to silence minority voices because they fear facing real voters, Crockett stated. She pointed out that the maneuver echoes previous Republican tactics following the Supreme Court's decision in Shelby v. Holder, which weakened key provisions of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Crockett further warned that abusing redistricting power opens new vulnerabilities in the electoral system, ones that could ultimately backfire and cost Republican lawmakers their seats. We will fight back, and I believe the people of Texas will not remain silent. We will turn our anger into action, she declared. Rep. Jasmine Crockett urges Democrats to strike back in redistricting battle Sacramento, California. As Texas moves toward approving a redistricting plan designed to strengthen Republican dominance, California Governor Gavin Newsom has announced he is considering a similar move to protect Democratic interests. The idea has drawn strong support from Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who says it's time for Democratic-led states to fight back, using the very tactics Republicans have deployed for the past decade. We've held the moral high ground for too long, while they've tossed aside the rules and the Constitution to cling to power, Crockett stated. If red states are bending the rules, blue states can't keep playing a one-sided game. She emphasized that the Democratic Party remains committed to democratic values and fairness, evidenced by several blue states establishing independent redistricting commissions. However, in today's climate of political extremism and legal manipulation, Crockett believes it may be necessary to set aside idealism temporarily in order to defend democracy itself. We can't afford to lose any more ground. If we have to redraw maps to hold our seats, then let's do it. Not for power, but for justice and the future of this country, she declared, sending a strong message to Democratic leaders nationwide. Democrats poised to launch full-scale investigation into Trump if they retake the House. Washington, D.C. As the battle for control of the House intensifies, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has declared that if Democrats regain the majority this November, they will prioritize launching a series of investigations into former President Donald Trump and his family. In a recent interview, Crockett emphasized that there is a treasure trove of misconduct that must be uncovered to uphold the rule of law and bring transparency to political power. There's no shortage of things to investigate, from violations of the Emoluments Clause, shady financial ties with foreign governments, media manipulation, to secret crypto parties where guests are too afraid to show their faces, she listed. Crockett also did not rule out reopening the Jeffrey Epstein case, where many suspect Trump may have had connections or deliberately obstructed the release of documents related to the international sex trafficking and child abuse network. Warning that the law cannot be bent by the rich and powerful, she said, House committees would work in close coordination to expose any violations of law, ethics, and the Constitution committed by the former president, who currently faces 34 criminal charges. The American people deserve to know the whole truth, Crockett concluded. Jasmine Crockett. The American people deserve to know the whole truth. Washington, D.C. Wrapping up a series of fiery statements, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett emphasized that the fight for truth and justice is far from over, and that the American people must be empowered to understand what is really happening behind the scenes of national politics. She warned that, in a country where a former president convicted on 34 criminal counts can still run for office, the foundations of American democracy are at a critical crossroads. We cannot allow someone like Donald Trump to continue manipulating public opinion, the legal system, and the media to protect his personal interests, Crockett declared. She stressed that Congress must act decisively to investigate allegations of corruption, abuse of power, media interference, and especially potential ties to serious scandals like Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking network. This isn't about politics. This is about ethics, legality, and the future of our republic, she said. Crockett vowed to use every legislative tool available to ensure that those in power are held accountable to the public. Her final message to voters was clear and urgent. If we don't protect the truth, we will lose our democracy.